Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to go over 5 palettes that I am contemplating decluttering. There are some palettes in my collection where I can look at it and I say, okay, I know for sure this one's out. Like I'm just not using it, doesn't bring me joy, whatever. But there are some palettes that really give me pause, honestly, and those are the ones I want to talk to you about today. This is going to be a quick, fun video. If you're new here, my name is Rachel. Hello. I like to play with colorful eyeshadow. I upload several videos every week. It's all eyeshadow related. I hope you consider liking and subscribing before you go. Okay, so before you ask, I did film today's eyeshadow look. I will link it down below in the description box, along with these palettes. If they're still available, I'll put them down there. But a couple of these are discontinued. So let's start with the one that is the hardest for me to consider parting with. This palette was so hyped when I first got into the eyeshadow game, and it was already limited edition, discontinued by the time I showed up. It was almost impossible to find on secondhand apps, and when you did find it, it was outrageously priced. So that alone, like not getting it. Eventually, after stalking the secondhand apps, I did find it for a reasonable price, and then I haggled with the seller for quite some time, and I was feeling exhilarated when they finally accepted my offer. I even stayed up late to bargain with them. This is the At Forest Sight palette from ColourPop and Raw Beauty Kristi. If you've watched any of my collection or ColourPop rankings or like best of or packaging, lots of theme videos, this palette falls very high. I think this palette is great as far as the packaging. I do watercolor painting, so it's kind of, you know, close to my heart. I think the packaging's beautiful. It's cute, but not cutesy. I like it a lot. The naming, of course, the way that some things are raised and everything else is just, you know, either muted or a subtle shine, the packaging is spot on. And then the color story is lovely. It really is. It's very natural. It's neutral-ish, but it's also colorful. It's a nice blend. I know that when Kristi designed this palette, she took a color picker tool on her computer and she found pictures of the Pacific Northwest and just grabbed colors from nature. So it's pre-curated for us, right? And it's matte heavy, which I prefer. It's got 2 beautiful shimmers. They are silver and gold, but they're both warm leaning because the silver has lots of brown in it. The packaging carries through. It's wonderful, except the formula. And this is not bad. This is not a bad formula or a bad palette as far as performance or anything. I mean, it's good ColourPop formula. I think it's nice. But at this point, I have really phenomenal quality eyeshadow formulas in my collection, which is almost all indie brands. ColourPop in general falls short. It falls quite short. And I have decluttered almost every ColourPop palette I own. I just keep holding on to this one because of the memories and how hard I worked to get it and how much everyone loved it. And I don't know. I think if this were a really good formula, I would be so much happier to use it and I would be happy to pair it with other things. But truthfully, the last few times I used the At Forest Sight palette, I didn't like the looks and I ended up bringing in other brands to save them. Blend Money, for example. Like I need better mattes and I need a shimmer or two, and then I threw on like a glitter liner just to try to save the look. And even at that, it wasn't great. And that's the result I'm having with this palette. The last several times I've used it, it's not really standing up against what else I own. So I am considering decluttering the At Forest Sight palette. Another palette that I'm considering decluttering is the Michaela palette, from like the first Michaela palette from Glamlight. This was one of my first palettes from Glamlight altogether, and I do like it. It's not, I don't love this palette. It doesn't have happy memories for me or anything. It's just an eyeshadow palette. Like all of them are, truthfully. All of them are just eyeshadow. It's just colorful powder. This palette's fun. It's very, very colorful. It does have a few too many purples. I think it has 7 purples. And then the top 2 rows are really neutral, and they're really warm neutrals, whereas all the brights are quite cool toned. So that's a bit odd, and also it's quite large. Overall, this is a good palette. The formula of Glamlight is excellent and is only getting better, but this is excellent quality as far as the performance, the formula, really easy to work with, high shine, very, very pigmented. It is a good palette. It's just a little too big for me, and there's some redundancy that doesn't excite me, especially compared to what else I own. So I'm thinking of getting rid of this one maybe. My daughter does like this one, so perhaps I'll give it to her. I'm not sure. I haven't fully decided. It's not out of my collection. None of these are out of my collection. I haven't made that call, but I'm thinking about it. They're kind of on the chopping block. If you are at all familiar with me or my channel, you'll know that Oden is my favorite brand. I think that they do an amazing job with their formula, their color stories, their packaging, the size of palette. Everything is so well done, except the swatches on their website. Those are terrible. But anyway, everything is so well done with Oden's Eye. I just really like the brand, and I think that they're fun to work with. I know very well how to work with their formula. I'm quite familiar with it, and I have a good amount of Oden's Eye palettes, but there are 3 in this video. And the first one is the Hummingbird palette when they collaborated with Tina from the Fancy Face. I only grabbed this one from the trio. This was the original Legendary Diversa trio, and this is a beautiful palette. And the more I talk about it, the more I think I'm probably not going to pass it on. But the reason it made it into today's video is because I don't use it a lot, and it is shimmer heavy. There are lots of shimmers in here and only 4 mattes. So I usually think of this as a special shades, like I need other palettes and then I'll grab the shimmer from this one. That's usually how I look at this one. It's beautiful, the packaging is amazing, the color story is lovely. I do have Tina's other collab palette, which is when she worked with Sydney Grace to create the Tropicolor palette. Sydney Grace is an amazing formula. I don't know, this palette is so lovely, but the colors are not super unique at this point. And if I can grab these colors from other palettes that are more complete, that have a better assortment of mattes to shimmer and lightness to depth and whatnot, then I'm more inclined to go get those, because these colors are not in and of themselves. If I take away the packaging, I just have a little pan of colored powder. That little pan of colored powder is not super unique. This one might be the exception. I don't know. I do love the Oden's Eye formula though, so I am I am hesitant to pass this alone because I know that I like it. It performs beautifully. However, it's also limited edition, so it would not be any trouble for me to sell it for a good price. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it. I don't know. Another Oden's Eye palette is much newer to my collection. I bought this trio, and in hindsight, I regret that. I should have only bought the one that excited me the most, the one that I felt was unique and special given my preferences. But here's the Flora Story palette. The first few times I used this palette, I thought, oh, no, I don't think so. Like, it was pretty. It is pretty. It is pretty. But the first few times I used it, the colors just felt kind of dusty and a little bit too muted and soft. They didn't show up amazing with my skin tones. The last time I used this palette, I was floored, and I think it was simply a matter of getting the right colors in the right places for my eye look, and it was, bam, so beautiful. Seriously, one of my favorite eyeshadow looks lately, and I thought, wow, well, I guess I just need to, you know, work with the palette more, approach it from a different angle maybe, use it in a different way, and get out of my mindset of it's dusty and instead just play with what's offered. And that's where I'm struggling because, again, that eyeshadow look was so stunning, but it still hasn't excited me to play with the palette more. I think my first impressions are sort of stuck in my brain, that it's too soft or too dusty or too muted. It's not showing up on me. Maybe somebody else will get better use out of it. I don't know. That's what I'm struggling with right now. This is a beautiful palette. I have not, again, I have not decided to declutter any of these palettes. It's just, I need to play with them more and then make that decision. Let's talk about Beauty Bay. Beauty Bay, I think that their best 20-pan palette, they have so many limited editions, but the best one, in my opinion, is the Wilderness, and that's a great palette. I do have a few others from Beauty Bay. The one that's in today's video is the Dark Fantasy. I don't think this is discontinued. I don't remember, honestly. Again, if it's available, I'll link it down below, but this is a pretty palette. I got this because I saw Angelica, sorry, if you hear weird sounds, that's my dishwasher. I got this because I saw Angelica Nyqvist do an absolutely stunning eyeshadow look with it, and silly me, I thought, I need the palette. When really I just need the skills. I just need the skills, and I had similar colors elsewhere. Anyway, foolishly I grabbed the palette. Now, it is a pretty palette. I do like this color story. I remember trying to dupe this out using other palettes in my collection, and I had to swatch almost every palette in my collection to get these shades. So color story wise, it is kind of unique. It's not expected, and I think it's pretty. I'm just not dipping into it a lot. And when I survey my collection and I'm thinking, oh, I'm feeling a little bit like, you know, it's getting too much, what should go? This is one that's pretty low on the list. I don't know. Again, I like it. I think the colors are great. The formula is great. It's fun to work with. It's pretty. There's something about it that's not drawing me in. If I were to get rid of this one, there is one shade that I would especially miss, and it's this one up here called Virtual, because this is a black with shimmer, and the shimmer reflects are like a silver blue, so that's pretty cool. There's a white matte, which I like. It's not amazing, but it is a good white matte. And then, I mean, overall, it's pretty. It is a pretty palette. I recently did a blue eyeshadow look with this using like these tones down here, and it was surprising. Like, I showed it to a friend and she went, that's the Dark Fantasy palette? Yeah, it was. And then the silvery shimmers, they remind me of the Star Wars palette from ColourPop, like liquid chrome. So great. It's not exciting me. So again, I need to play with it more to get those juices flowing. Maybe it's a matter of approaching it from a different angle. And finally, for today's video, we're going to talk about one more Oden's Eye palette, and this is also from that trio that I bought. This is the Planet Spirit. Now, again, I've not decided to get rid of any of these palettes, but the Planet Spirit, of the three, I feel like this one is the most challenging. I wish that it had maybe one or two fewer colors and instead brought in lightness and depth of the remaining colors. I feel like that would have made it more of a standalone palette, because as it sits right now, I need to pair it with other things. So generally what I do is I choose a matte or a shimmer from here, and then I use that as a focal point in the look, and I bring in other palettes to finish it all off, you know, to bring it all together. So this is more of a, again, kind of like the Hummingbird, more of a special shades or a unique undertones. Like I know that one color, I'll grab that color, and then I use it with other palettes in my collection. This multi-chrome right here is really pretty. It's a very light iridescent pink, super pretty. The palette's lovely, and again, it's the Oden's Eye formula that I really, really enjoy. It's just a matter of, it's not a standalone for me, and because I have lots of other options, it kind of gets forgotten a little bit. Okay, so that closes out today's video. These are the palettes that I am considering decluttering. I have not decided yet. I don't know. The more I look at them, the more I think, but I can't. I'm really not sure. If you are ever curious as to what I finally do decide to declutter, I might make a video of that later on, or you can always check my secondhand apps. I have Poshmark and Mercari, and they are both listed below in the description box in case you're curious to see what I've got listed. But that's going to finish off today's video. I appreciate you guys very much. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for being with me here today, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!